Welcome back to this. Already the final segment of today's Price of Business. My good friend Chris Corso. Chris Corso is in the house. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you, Kevin? Always
good
a pleasure.
to see you. It seems like
too.
we've been missing each other lately with travel and all kinds of stuff happening. But we're glad you're in town. You've got an interesting practice that's expanding, and I think a great story, a great message. I think civil liberties are among the single most important political issues of our time and among the most neglected. And I look at what's happening globally, and all of the things like what happened recently in Brussels. People are getting more and more scared, and as a result, they're more and more willing to trade civil liberties because of their fear. I tell you right now, life isn't really worth living if we're willing to trade our freedoms, in my opinion. And you're a great advocate of civil liberties.
I am, and it seems like more and more we go, it's designed that way, for people to be in that fear and just give it up without even thinking or, doing anything about it, and it's right in our backyard.
Yeah. It's a very smart friend of mine in business said to me once during lunch that, if they want to take my, if they want to bend my civil liberties to find out what I'm doing with my phones, by all means let them do it, because he knows, he's not likely to be someone they would be interested in. But I'm like going, well, we've got constitutional amendments. We've got a Fourth Amendment that prohibits that kind of activity by the federal government. Shouldn't we at least be honest enough to make them change the law instead of just completely disregarding it? Because they can't change the law. Americans don't want those civil liberties to be gone. And so instead they just infringe on it and really play on our fear.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you talk about, cell phones, and we could probably talk about this another time where they, when they're trying to find people that possibly committed a crime and they go after their phones with devices, and it basically covers many people that are, around the area too, but people just give up.
Yeah,
they feel like they're fighting against an uphill battle. And that's what we're fighting to fix.
What I wanted to talk to you about today, and you sent me a little bit of information on in advance because we talked about it in advance, is how to handle a felony. Let's talk a little bit about that. That topic I think is extremely timely and kind of ties in a little bit with even what we were talking about.
Yeah, it does. I mean, how to handle it. A lot of law firms will, consider themselves criminal attorneys, and, but the stigma, the mindset is you're charged with a felony, so all of a sudden you should be put into a different category. How much help should you get,
Right.
And so, we don't take that approach. My approach is always you represent the person and not the client, and that's, they're human beings. There's not a conviction. You're charged with a crime, you're not convicted of a crime. Mm-hmm. And it can be everyday people. You take an aggravated DWI. You have a child in the car, he came from a barbecue, he had a little bit to drink, and all of a sudden you're charged with a felony and you're upside down. So how do you do it? You got to take care of that. You have to have your client prepared for everything. And that's something a lot of attorneys don't do. I think we signed, I don't know how many cases last week that are coming from different attorneys. They have an attorney now, and they're just they're not doing their job.
Right.
And they're not communicating. And that's one of the biggest parts of representing anybody, especially in a felony. There's a lot of moving parts.
Talk a little bit about the very first thing that comes to mind when it comes to this question of how to handle a felony.
For the attorney, when you're handling a felony, the first thing you have to do is you have to get to know your client. You really have to get to know your client. You have to get to know the situation. The more knowledge you have on a topic, obviously, the better the fight, the more you can advocate and, fact gathering, getting everything together, but really knowing your client, really getting to know them, their family, everyone involved.
So, one of the things you've pointed out before that I think was really important that the listener needs to be aware of is that just because someone is a defense attorney doesn't mean they're the right defense attorney for you and your case. And so, I got a really good friend who's one of the, frankly, the best ticket dismissers out there. He's extremely good at dismissing tickets. There's no way he's doing a felony case.
No.
And he's not doing, he's not doing even some, he won't touch DUI or DWI. He knows what he's good at, and so talk a little bit about that. How do you kind of determine what's the best attorney or which attorney is going to have the best approach for your needs?
Yeah, I mean, the interview process, a lot of people, will look at reviews today, and that's fine. But you have to know what you're asking for when you sit down. And some of those things, again, what you said. Now, your friend those are the attorneys we like because they don't pretend to be what they're not. And when you sit down with a lawyer to talk about what's going to happen, what you should be getting, there are certain things, for example, how long have you been doing this? How much experience you have? Not really your record, about how many wins or losses. It's about the knowledge, the experience, and your knowledge of the opposition. That's a big thing. Hey, look, in sports, we want to know the opposition. We study all week. Well, it's the same thing with this. No different.
Right. Yes, exactly right. Talk about the importance of doing your homework before a case, and how your group's philosophy, your firm's philosophy may be different from some of the others that you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, again, I consider you doing your homework, understanding the opposition, understanding I used to be a prosecutor, and the one thing I understand is some of the intangibles, the behind the scenes. Sometimes is what I tell clients. That's what wins cases. I mean, we're all lawyers. We all can look in a book. We all can go to Westlaw or do things like that. But who can actually have a good idea and a good understanding of what the mindset is of a prosecutor? What are the cases they like? They're about statistics. They're not going to take a case all the way and take it to the wall if they think it's, something that they can't win. And you need to know that. You'll always need to know that, and having done it.
Yeah, what's the saying among lawyers? Never ask a question unless you know the answer.
That's right. Yeah, it really is true.
Talk a little bit about the possible outcomes. When you talk to a client about that, and kind of creating expectations and that type of thing.
You have to be real careful. These are people that are ready and willing to cling to something. They're clinging to hope. So that's a big responsibility by an attorney. You can't abuse that just to get the case to sign. Can't do it.
Yep. One of the things that I love that you say that I think really resonates with people is that you represent the person, not just the client, and so that shows a level of empathy and compassion that I think is necessary for the kind of law you practice. Talk about how that, that caring comes into how you take care of your clients.
Because they're people, and they're not, to prosecutors, and if having been a prosecutor, this is why I know this, they're a number on a piece of paper to them. That's it. And it's real easy to drop the hammer on somebody when you have no idea who they are. When you get to know them a little bit, you realize they're people. And as defense attorneys, we should be in that position from moment one. It's not just them, it's their whole family. There are other people that are affected by this. And sometimes bad things happen to good people. And you have to just understand them rather than understand the nuts and bolts of the case.
I agree with that. Talk a little bit as we wrap it up. One last thing, there's not a one-size-fit-all approach. So real quickly, talk about, what are typical options you're trying to weigh for a client?
Yeah, I mean, there are different outcomes that you're trying to get. Sometimes it's just minimizing the damage at that point. They may have a prior history or something like that, and you're really just trying to protect you're always trying to protect their rights. And then within that, you try to find different avenues that, like you say, will fit that particular individual for their circumstance and their past.
Yeah. Corso is his name. Chris Corso, C-O-R-S-O, CorsoLawGroup.com. Awesome, as always. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Kevin. Always a pleasure.
All right. When we're back tomorrow, we're going to have much more for you. I do want to remind you the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. And don't forget, the best content here is over there at usdatareview.com. Have a great day. Spend it wisely on this station.